I have a question.
Yeah.
How I never understood this part. Like, how does a interdimensional being or like a spiritual being like have
Go
a
ahead,
wife
Dennis. We're adults.
how can they do that with a human woman, right? How
Yeah.
do they change? Do they come into this form? Do they get an earth suit? What do they do? Like, how is this? I just don't understand that.
Yeah. So when you look in Scripture, we have that passage in Hebrews that tells us to be hospitable to strangers. Some people have entertained angels unaware. And it seems as if angels are capable of taking on human form, whether it's on their own ability that God gave them that ability, or if God empowers them at a certain time, which is some would argue, but it never tells us that. We know in Genesis 18, the passage we were just talking about with the angels coming down with God to Abraham,
Right.
they eat and drink with Abraham, and then they go to Sodom and they grab Lot by the hand and they yank him out of the city. So they can do all sorts of physical things. In Daniel 9, Gabriel comes to Daniel, and Daniel says, the man Gabriel came to me. So he appears in the form of a man. If they
Like
can
shapeshifters?
Shapeshifter, well, or what form do they have right now? I mean, when we think of them as being spiritual beings, they're not spiritual in the sense of no body whatsoever. They have form. They're composed of something. You know, they're not spaceless. They're not omnipresent. So they do have a, I'm going to say, quote unquote, body of some sort. I don't know what it's made out of. One of the systematic theology books I have called them angel stuff. Okay, well, they're made of angel stuff, whatever that might be. But when the ones who do or can, when they take human form, it appears that they're capable of just doing, performing human functions, eating and drinking, grabbing someone by the hand, and perhaps reproducing. Some people say, well, angels can't create life. We're not talking about creating life. We're talking about procreation. I can't create life, but I've got 2 kids, procreation. And so are they capable of doing that? One of the objections to that is, first, let's get this out of the way. So many people, you might have a few listeners who are like, what are they even talking about? If they've stuck with us for an hour, they're probably not having this objection anymore. But so many people are like, well, Jesus said the angels can't do. No, he did not.
Can't what?
That the angels can't get married. He didn't say that. He said the angels in heaven don't marry. He never said anything about the ones who rebelled against God and left heaven, or as Jude talks about, they left their proper abode. He never said what the ones who left are capable of doing, just said what the ones in heaven don't do. So you can't use that verse, Matthew 22:30, and then say, well, Jesus spoke against the fallen angel view. No, he actually didn't. So I want to make sure I get that out there, because that's the number one objection that people say all the time. And another objection would be, and I think this gets to the point we were just talking about, how in Genesis 1 it talks about the plants will bring forth after their kind, the animals will bring forth after their kind.
Right.
Dogs will always have dogs, cats will always have cats. And so if humans are going to always have humans, how could angels come down and do this with humans? Because that's different kinds, right? Well, first of all, it never says that about humans. It only says about the plants and the animals. Now, assuming that principle still holds true for humans, what if angels are also made in God's image? Now, the Bible never comes right out and says that they are necessarily, it's not directly. But what if, who is God talking to when he says, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness? And then God does make man. You have other passages like in Genesis 11 where God said, let us go down, and they're confused their language. And you have, you've read Heiser's book, about this whole divine council language where God is speaking to these other beings. I think in the West, a lot of times we've just assumed, oh, this is inter-Trinitarian dialogue.
Trinity.
I don't think so. I think he's speaking to the heavenly host, or to his divine council, if you will, these other spiritual beings. He rules over them. He makes the decisions, but he allows them to give input.
Yeah, because you brought it up earlier. The verse they'll use is the angels in heaven aren't given to marriage.
Yeah,
right?
Matthew 22:30.
But that's specifically talking about the angels in heaven.
Yeah.
But when the angels came to earth, and you mentioned multiple times where that happened, Abraham, Sodom and Gomorrah,
And
later
Jude even
New
says they left
Testament.
their proper abode. They left the place they were
Exactly.
supposed to be. Yeah.
Exactly. So do you think that the angels that came and ate with Abraham and that grabbed Lot, do you think they were just these like ethereal spirit things that sit on your shoulder and whisper good tidings? Probably not. If they can eat, they can probably do other human things too.
And not only that, remember the men of Sodom wanted to rape them. I think they appeared human. I think they looked human. If they were, like you'll see these, how so many times we swing from like one side of the pendulum to the other. And so we have this view of angels that are like the long blonde hair and they're glowy, and they float, or they play a harp, and people are objecting to that. And so then you see like the exact opposite, where people are like, well, here's a biblical view of angels, and it has this creature with eyes all over the place. Like, no, those are the 4 living creatures in heaven. Not every single angel is described that way. You have the seraphim who have 6 wings, 2 they cover their feet, 2 they cover their eyes, and the 2 they fly. That's Isaiah 6. You have some of them described with like 4 wings, like the cherubim who are made that are at least depicted in certain places. So we'll go to one extreme or the other, but how about we just look at what the Bible talks about? And in this case, they appear to be humanoid, and they at least appear in human form, not some sort of monstrous creature that the men of Sodom like, hey, that looks inviting.
Right. That'd be so weird.
Yeah. I mean they'd pretty be weird no matter what, but
they were messed up, but I don't know if they were that messed up. This like crazy hybrid thing walks in. Yeah, it's angels just a word, okay? But we lump a lot of stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
And biblically, there's a lot of different kinds of angels.
Yeah.
And they play different roles. They have different tasks. They have different authority.
That's a great point. I think people are going to be shocked when we are with the Lord that how diverse the spiritual beings are up there. It's not, you don't all just look like this one thing. No.
Right.
It's going to be very
You're not
diverse.
just chubby babies on clouds playing harps, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And we don't become that either, just for the record. We don't become angels.
Correct. Yeah.
We get glorified bodies like Jesus had after he rose, and that's what we get.
That makes sense, because I had the idea that the fallen angels, it says that they left their first estate, right? They left their abode. It doesn't say that they went back. Okay.
No.
Whereas the angels that
it actually says that they're held in chains of darkness until the day of judgment. They're bound.
Ooh. Okay.
So
yeah, that's a great point, because the other angels, the ones that appeared to Abraham, the ones that would appear to like Paul and let him out of prison, the ones we talked about before, they would appear, they would fulfill their task, and they were gone.
Yep.
They would go back to their abode, their first estate.
Yep.
Right? These other ones likely abandoned that estate, abandoned that state of being per se, and stuck around, did their task, and it was so abominable that God imprisoned them, until they're to be released. Right? I think that's
until the day
Revelation.
Yeah. So Jude 6 of the angels who did not keep their own domain, but abandoned their proper abode, he has kept in eternal bonds under darkness for the judgment of the great day. And then he compares it to Sodom and Gomorrah, the people who went after strange flesh. And so in that same context. And then Peter does almost the exact same thing in 2 Peter 2:4. It's very similar. He talks about it. God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into Tartarus and committed them to pits of darkness reserved for judgment. 1 Peter 3 talks about these angels or the spirits who sinned in Noah's day while the ark was being built.